Welcome to the Think Forward podcast, where we speak with futurists, innovators, and big thinkers. Come along with your host, Steve Fisher, and explore the future together.
Welcome back to Foundations in Foresight, a Think Forward series. I'm Steve Fisher, and today we're exploring a powerful approach that can transform your foresight practice, participatory futures methods. Throughout this series, we've explored various aspects of futures thinking, from personal practices to organizational capabilities. Today, we're focusing on how to engage diverse stakeholders in co-creating futures, rather than having foresight remain the domain of experts or specialists. This approach not only generates richer insights, but also builds deeper buy-in and commitment to the futures you're exploring. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why participatory approaches matter, learn specific methods for engaging different stakeholders, and have practical strategies for designing inclusive futures processes that lead to meaningful action. Whether you're working in a corporate setting, a community organization, or a government agency, these participatory approaches can significantly enhance both the quality and impact of your foresight work. Let's dive in. Why participatory futures matter? Before we explore specific methods, let's understand why participatory approaches to futures thinking are so valuable, and in many contexts, essential for effective foresight. Traditional foresight often follows an expert-driven model where specialists analyze trends, develop scenarios, and present insights to decision-makers. While this approach has value, it also has significant limitations. Limited perspective. Even the most knowledgeable experts have blind spots and biases. When futures work remains in the hands of a small group, especially a homogeneous one, it often misses important signals, perspectives, and possibilities. Implementation gaps. When people aren't involved in developing future visions and scenarios, they're less likely to understand, believe in, or commit to acting on them. This creates a disconnect between foresight and action. Power imbalances. Who gets to imagine and shape the future is fundamentally a question of power. When futures work is done by a small elite group for others, it can reinforce existing inequities rather than creating more inclusive futures. Missed innovation. Many breakthrough ideas come from unexpected sources, people with different experiences, knowledge, and ways of thinking than traditional experts. Participatory approaches tap into this distributed creativity. By contrast, participatory futures methods bring diverse stakeholders directly into the process of imagining, exploring, and creating futures. This approach enriches foresight. It incorporates multiple perspectives, experiences, and knowledge systems, leading to more robust, nuanced scenarios and insights. Builds ownership. When people co-create futures, they develop a sense of agency and responsibility for shaping them, increasing the likelihood of meaningful action. Democratizes the future. It expands who has a voice in imagining and shaping what's ahead, potentially leading to more equitable and inclusive futures. Accelerates learning. The collaborative nature of participatory futures creates rich learning opportunities as different viewpoints interact, challenge assumptions, and generate new possibilities. Participatory futures isn't about replacing expertise with crowd opinion. Rather, it's about creating processes where specialized knowledge and diverse perspectives work together to generate richer insights and stronger commitment to action. Key principles of participatory futures. Effective participatory futures work is guided by several core principles that shape how we design and facilitate collaborative processes. Genuine inclusion. Participation must be meaningful, not tokenistic. This means involving diverse stakeholders from the beginning, ensuring they have real influence on the process and outcomes, and creating conditions where everyone can contribute fully. Multiple ways of knowing. Different people understand and engage with the future in different ways. Some are analytical, others intuitive. Some respond to data, others to stories. Effective participatory processes incorporate multiple modalities: verbal, visual, experiential, analytical, to engage different styles of thinking. Power awareness. All collaborative processes involve power dynamics that affect who speaks, who is heard, and whose ideas shape outcomes. Participatory futures requires explicit attention to these dynamics with active efforts to balance participation and influence. Future literacy development. Many people aren't accustomed to thinking systematically about the future. Participatory approaches need to build participants' capacity to engage with futures thinking, not just extract their current perspectives. Action orientation. The ultimate goal isn't just interesting conversations, but meaningful influence on decisions, policies, and actions that shape the future. Participatory processes should have clear pathways to impact. These principles aren't just nice ideas. They're practical guidelines that shape how we design and facilitate participatory futures processes. As we explore specific methods, you'll see how these principles translate into concrete approaches. Participatory futures methods, a toolkit. Now, let's explore specific methods that bring participatory principles to life. These approaches can be used individually or combined into multi-stage processes, depending on your context and objectives. 1. Collective horizon scanning. Instead of limiting trend scanning to experts, collective approaches engage diverse stakeholders in identifying signals of change and emerging developments. How it works. Create a distributed network of sensors across different roles, demographics, and domains. Provide simple tools and frameworks for capturing and sharing observations. Establish regular processes for pooling insights and identifying patterns. Facilitate collaborative sense-making to explore implications. Example: a healthcare organization created a future of care network with members from clinical staff, administrative teams, patient advocates, and community partners. Using a simple digital platform, members shared observations about emerging changes in healthcare delivery, technology, and patient expectations. Quarterly, they came together to explore patterns and implications, generating insights that inform the organization's strategic planning. When to use it. Collective scanning works well when you need to. Expand your perceptual range across diverse domains. Surface insights from frontline perspectives that might not reach leadership. Build broader awareness of emerging changes. Create ongoing future intelligence rather than one-time insights. Second, future visioning workshops. These structured workshops engage stakeholders in developing shared visions of preferred futures, often in response to particular challenges or opportunities. How it works. Gather diverse stakeholders with relevant perspectives and stakes in the future. Use structured activities to move beyond current constraints and limitations. Create spaces for both divergent thinking, generating possibilities, and convergent thinking, finding common ground. Develop vivid, specific images of desired futures that can guide action. Example: a city facing infrastructure challenges engaged residents, businesses, planners, and environmental groups in a series of visioning workshops. Instead of abstract discussions about infrastructure needs, they used immersive scenarios and visualization techniques to explore how different approaches would affect daily life, economic opportunity, and environmental quality. The resulting vision wasn't a compromise between competing interests, but a genuinely shared aspiration that informed the city's development plan. When to use it. Visioning workshops are particularly valuable when you need to develop alignment around a shared direction, move beyond current conflicts or stuck patterns, generate energy and commitment for challenging transformations, create concrete images that can guide long-term planning. Third, futures dialogues. These structured conversations explore multiple perspectives on emerging issues, challenging assumptions, and expanding awareness of different possible futures. How it works. Frame provocative but open-ended questions about emerging trends or potential futures. Bring together people with diverse and even conflicting viewpoints. Use facilitation approaches that encourage deep listening and genuine exchange. Document insights about different perspectives, shared concerns, and areas of alignment. Example: an educational institution facing rapid technological change organized a series of futures dialogues, bringing together teachers, students, parents, technologists, and employers. Rather than debating specific technology adoption decisions, they explored deeper questions about the purpose of education, changing skills requirements, and evolving learning models. These dialogues revealed unexpected areas of alignment and surfaced critical tensions that needed to be addressed for successful transformation. When to use it. Futures dialogues are particularly effective when issues are complex with no clear, right answer. Multiple legitimate perspectives need to be considered. You need to surface and explore underlying assumptions. Building mutual understanding is as important as specific outcomes. Fourth, immersive scenario experiences. These approaches bring future possibilities to life through immersive, experiential methods rather than just written or verbal descriptions. How it works. Develop vivid, detailed scenarios that capture different possible futures. Create immersive experiences using techniques from theater, design, gaming, or digital simulation. Engage participants not just intellectually but emotionally and physically. Facilitate reflection on the experience and its implications for present actions. Example: A company exploring the future of work created an immersive scenario experience where employees could spend a day in different potential work environments 5 years ahead. Physical spaces were set up to represent different scenarios, with actors portraying colleagues and clients. Participants navigated these environments, encountering challenges and opportunities that made abstract futures tangible and personal. The experience generated much deeper engagement with strategic workforce planning than traditional presentations or reports. When to use it? Immersive scenario experiences are particularly valuable when abstract futures need to be made tangible and personal. Emotional and experiential engagement is important for motivation. Complex systemic changes are difficult to convey through data alone. You want to generate empathy for different future experiences. Fifth, participatory policy design. This approach engages diverse stakeholders in developing policies, strategies, or initiatives to address future challenges and opportunities. How it works. Frame clear but open-ended design challenges based on future scenarios or vision. Engage stakeholders with diverse expertise, experiences, and interests. Provide structured processes for ideation, prototyping, and refinement. Create feedback loops between policy designers and those who will be affected. Example: a government agency addressing aging infrastructure engaged citizens, businesses, environmental experts, and public service providers in a participatory policy design process. Instead of technical experts developing solutions in isolation, diverse stakeholders work together to identify priorities, explore options, and design implementation approaches. The resulting policy framework had broader support and more innovative elements than conventionally developed plans. When to use it? Participatory policy design is particularly effective when solutions need to integrate multiple perspectives and types of expertise. Implementation will require broad stakeholder support. Complex trade-offs benefit from transparent, inclusive deliberation. Traditional approaches have failed to generate effective or acceptable solutions. Sixth, future prototyping. This approach moves beyond discussing or visualizing futures to actually creating tangible prototypes of products, services, or systems that might exist in different futures. How it works. Identify key elements of future scenarios that could be prototyped. Engage diverse participants in hands-on creation of physical or digital artifacts. Use these prototypes to make abstract futures more concrete and testable. Gather feedback and insights from wider stakeholder groups. Example: a healthcare organization exploring the future of preventative care created a series of prototypes representing different approaches, from AI-powered health coaching apps to community-based wellness centers. These weren't just concepts, but functioning prototypes that stakeholders could interact with. The prototyping process revealed practical implementation challenges and user preferences that wouldn't have emerged from abstract planning. When to use it? Future prototyping is particularly valuable when abstract concepts need to be made tangible to evaluate effectively. User experience and practical implementation details matter. You want to test assumptions before making larger investments. Hands-on creation can generate more innovative solutions. Designing effective participatory processes. While these methods provide valuable tools, their effectiveness depends on how thoughtfully they're designed and facilitated. Here are key considerations for creating participatory futures processes that generate meaningful insights and action. Clarity of purpose and scope. Be clear about why you're engaging in participatory futures work and what influence it will have. Participants deserve to know whether they're providing input that may inform decisions made elsewhere, generating options for consideration by decision makers, making recommendations that carry significant weight, directly deciding on actions or policies. Misalignment between participant expectations and actual influence leads to frustration and disengagement. Define the scope clearly. What's on the table, what's not, and how outcomes will feed into broader processes. Strategic stakeholder engagement. Thoughtful stakeholder engagement is essential for participatory futures work. Consider who needs to be involved. Map stakeholders based on their interest, influence, expertise, and perspective. Ensure diversity not just in demographics, but in viewpoints, knowledge, and experience. How should they be engaged? Different stakeholders may require different modes of engagement based on their availability, interest, and relationship to the issue. Options range from intensive co-creation to periodic consultation to broader outreach. When should engagement occur? Engage stakeholders early enough to shape the process, not just react to predetermined options. Create multiple touch points throughout the process rather than one-time involvement. Remember that stakeholder engagement isn't just about getting input. It's about building relationships and trust that enable ongoing collaboration. Inclusive design and facilitation. Effective participation requires deliberate attention to inclusion in both design and facilitation. Accessible formats and timing. Ensure that engagement opportunities are accessible to diverse participants, considering factors like location, timing, language, and digital access. Multiple modalities provide various ways for people to contribute: verbal, written, visual, individual, collective, recognizing that people process and express ideas differently. Balanced participation. Use facilitation approaches that prevent domination by the most vocal or powerful voices while drawing out perspectives that might otherwise remain unheard. Cultural sensitivity. Recognize that different cultures have different communication styles, comfort with disagreement, and approaches to future-oriented thinking. Design processes that respect these differences. Inclusion isn't just about who's in the room. It's about creating conditions where everyone can contribute meaningfully. Bridging to action. The ultimate test of participatory futures work is whether it influences decisions and actions. Design processes with clear pathways to impact. Decision connections. Establish explicit links between participatory processes and formal decision-making structures, whether in organizations, communities, or governments. Accountability mechanisms. Create transparency about how participatory inputs are considered, what decisions are made, and why certain options are pursued or not. Ongoing engagement. Design for continued stakeholder involvement through implementation, not just initial planning, creating feedback loops that allow adaptation based on experience. Building capacity. Develop participants' ability to continue engaging with futures thinking and influence decisions beyond the specific process. The most effective participatory futures work doesn't end with a report or recommendations. It builds ongoing capability for collective future shaping. Case studies. Participatory futures in action. To make these approaches more concrete, let's explore 2 cases where participatory futures methods created significant value. Case Study 1. The Consumer Products Company. A global consumer products company recognized that changing social values, environmental pressures, and technology were transforming their market. Rather than limiting futures exploration to their strategy team, they implemented a participatory approach. Diverse participation. They engaged employees from different functions, levels, and geographies. Customers representing different segments, sustainability experts, and technology partners in a structured futures process. Multi-method approach. The process combined collective trend scanning, immersive scenario experiences, and future prototyping to generate both breadth and depth of insight. Integration with strategy. The participatory futures work wasn't separate from strategic planning but integrated into it, with explicit connections between futures insights and resource allocation decisions. Continuous learning. Instead of a one-time exercise, they established ongoing participation mechanisms, including a distributed scanning network and quarterly future forums. The results were substantial. The process identified emerging consumer needs that market research had missed, surfaced internal barriers to innovation that hadn't been visible to leadership, and generated product concepts that traditional development processes hadn't considered. Perhaps most importantly, it created broader organizational ownership of the strategic changes needed to thrive in emerging futures. Case Study 2. The Regional Planning Authority. A regional authority responsible for transportation, housing, and economic development faced increasing complexity and disagreement about priorities. They used participatory futures to break through long-standing conflicts. Broad-based engagement. They engaged residents, businesses, community organizations, environmental groups, and local governments in a process that went beyond traditional consultation to genuine co-creation. Future visioning. Instead of starting with current positions and interests, they focused first on developing shared visions of the region's future, identifying areas of alignment that weren't visible in day-to-day debates. Participatory policy design. Working groups with diverse membership developed specific policies and investments to move toward shared aspirations, with technical experts supporting rather than directing the process. Public futures dialogue. They maintained ongoing public conversation about regional futures through various platforms, creating transparency and continued engagement beyond formal planning processes. The participatory approach generated both better solutions and stronger support for implementation. Policies integrated diverse needs more effectively than expert-driven plans. Implementation moved faster because stakeholders who had been engaged in development became champions rather than critics, and the capacity for collaborative problem-solving extended beyond the specific planning process to other regional challenges. Overcoming common challenges. Participatory futures work, while powerful, isn't without challenges. Here are strategies for addressing common obstacles. Challenge 1. We don't have time for such extensive engagement. Time constraints are real, but they don't preclude meaningful participation. Consider tiered engagement. Design approaches with different levels of involvement, from intensive co-creation with key stakeholders to broader consultation with wider groups. Focused scope. Clearly define the questions or issues where participation will add most value, rather than trying to engage on everything. Efficient methods. Use approaches like digital platforms, asynchronous engagement, or representative sampling to gather diverse input without requiring everyone's simultaneous participation. Long-term view. Remember that while upfront investment in participation takes time, it often saves time later by reducing resistance, rework, and implementation challenges. The question isn't whether participation takes time, it does, but whether that time investment generates sufficient value through better solutions and stronger implementation. Challenge 2. Participants lack futures literacy and expertise. Many potential participants aren't accustomed to thinking systematically about the future. To address this, build capacity as you go. Design processes that develop futures literacy while generating insights, rather than treating them as separate stages. Use accessible methods. Start with approaches that don't require specialized foresight expertise, such as visioning or trends identification, before moving to more complex futures work. Provide appropriate scaffolding. Create frameworks, tools, and guidance that support participants in futures thinking without overwhelming them. Balance expertise and experience. Design processes where subject matter experts and those with lived experience can contribute complementary insights. Remember that participants bring valuable knowledge about their context, needs, and experiences, even if they aren't futures experts. The goal is to combine this knowledge with futures methods, not replace one with the other. Challenge 3. Participatory processes are messy and unpredictable. By their nature, participatory approaches involve more variables and stakeholders than expert-driven methods. To manage this complexity, design flexible structures. Create clear frameworks and processes that provide structure while allowing space for emergence and adaptation. Start small and expand. Begin with focused, manageable participation before scaling to more complex processes or broader engagement. Develop facilitation capability. Invest in skilled facilitation that can navigate diverse perspectives, manage conflict, and maintain focus while honoring emergence. Set clear expectations. Be transparent with participants and sponsors about the iterative nature of participatory work and the types of outcomes it produces. Effective participation isn't about eliminating uncertainty, but rather navigating it productively, recognizing that complex challenges require adaptive approaches. Challenge 4. Leadership is skeptical about the value of participation. In many organizations and institutions, decision-makers may question whether broader engagement is worth the investment. To address this, start with leadership engagement. Involve key decision-makers in experiencing participatory futures methods rather than just describing them. Focus on strategic value. Frame participation in terms of risk reduction, innovation, implementation effectiveness, or other values that resonate with leadership priorities. Begin with demonstration projects. Implement participatory approaches on a limited scale to demonstrate value before proposing broader adoption. Document and share outcomes. Capture concrete examples of how participation led to better insights, solutions, or implementation than traditional approaches. Remember that shifting toward more participatory approaches often requires cultural change, not just methodological adaptation. This takes time and persistent advocacy, not just rational argument. Next steps. Building your participatory futures practice. As we wrap up our exploration of participatory futures methods, here are concrete steps for developing your own practice. Assess your current approach. Reflect on how participatory your current futures work is. Who's involved? At what stages? With what level of influence? This baseline helps you identify priority areas for enhancement. Start with a specific application. Rather than trying to transform your entire approach at once, identify a specific project or decision where participatory methods could add particular value. Choose methods that fit your context. Based on your objectives, constraints, and stakeholders, select 1 or 2 participatory approaches from the toolkit we've explored. Start simple before moving to more complex methods. Build facilitation capability. Participatory futures requires skilled facilitation. Develop these capabilities internally or partner with experienced facilitators who can help design and guide effective processes. Document and learn. Capture insights about both process and outcomes. What worked well? What could be improved? How did participation change the quality of futures insights or the commitment to action? Remember that developing participatory futures practice is itself an iterative journey. Start where you are, learn as you go, and gradually expand your capabilities and applications. Looking ahead. In our next episode, we'll explore another critical dimension of futures practice: the ethical responsibilities of futures practitioners. We'll discuss how to ensure that our work contributes to more equitable, sustainable, and positive futures rather than reinforcing harmful patterns or advantaging some at the expense of others. Until then, I encourage you to begin exploring how participatory approaches might enhance your futures work. The future doesn't belong to experts alone. It emerges from the complex interactions of countless actors and systems. By engaging diverse perspectives and co-creating futures, we not only generate richer insights, but also build collective capacity to shape what's ahead in ways that benefit more people. Thank you for joining me today. Keep exploring, keep engaging, and as always, think forward.
Thanks for listening to the Think Forward podcast. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms and at www.thinkforwardshow.com, as well as on YouTube under Think Forward Show. See you next time.